seeing how much of the world is out there. Like, was there a moment for you, a story for you, where the benefits are seen, are highlighted?
There's tons, and the most resonant one relates to that trip that I took to China, that charity mission. So one thing that we did with our money, we actually talked to people in Sichuan. We said, "What do you need?" They said, "Okay, we need two different things. The first thing we need is we need tenting material, because you're going to have tens or hundreds of thousands of people living in the elements with no protection. So if they get these kind of like canvas tents that they can do there, they actually need the material." So we sourced this from Beijing, because of course, Beijing was far from the area that was hit. And they were doing these mercy flights and mercy train rides every day to bring materials. It was being run by the Chinese and the Beijing Red Cross. It was actually very, very easy to get stuff from Beijing. So we found this source of this tenting supply in the next province over called Shandong. And what made their tent material so special was some tent materials were just canvas, they weren't reinforced. And some tent materials were reinforced either vertically or horizontally. We found tenting material that was reinforced vertically and horizontally, which meant that it was like 16 times as strong as material that wasn't. So we said, okay, we want that. So we ended up ordering like this ridiculous amount set. It was like the first order was like 10,000 square meters.
Wow.
And then we realized that we kept getting more money, because I was like fundraising from there. We kept getting more money wired. So then we said, we can get like 20,000 more.
Jeez.
So we had tents for like 70,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So on the second time, and the other thing, of course, they needed was stuff like aspirin and feminine protection. And the funniest thing was we went into Walmart one day. I went in with a good friend of mine in Beijing, and she and I hit all the Walmarts in Beijing. And she's, of course, a Beijinger, totally fluent in Mandarin. So we'd say, okay, we want like every tampon in the entire store and storehouse. So we'd walk out with like 5 shopping carts full, but they needed this because they couldn't get any of this in Sichuan. But the story that resonates most with me was the second big load. We had the drivers drive 14 hours from Shandong province and meet us on the 5th Ring Road in Beijing, and then we would lead them into where the train was. So we get there, and it's like, totally hot and hectic and busy and insane. So we get there to this final stop, and these guys, and there's like 10 guys on the truck, and again, these are like poor Chinese laborers, right? And they get out and they're crying. And of course, I'm dealing with my friend who's my interpreter, and I'm like, well, what's going on? They were so touched that we were doing this, and that I made the effort to come to China and raise the money, because every single worker on that truck from Beijing, coming into Beijing from Shandong, was from Sichuan, from Chengdu, and half of the guys on that train lost family members that week. So the fact that some Western dude was flying to Beijing, raising money, sleeping on a floor, and going around and buying 30,000 meters worth of tenting materials for them. They didn't understand the world could work that way. That, to me, was the one thing where I said to myself, okay, this is really cool.
Yeah. And why were you? Like, why were you doing that, sleeping on floors and flying in? Like, what was it?
The answer is I couldn't sleep. I got back, I was on a trip to China, I got back to Toronto, and I was there for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. And then I hear about the earthquake, right? And of course, I remember that unbelievably visceral image from the New York Times that was on the front cover of like the husband and wife standing out with nothing, with all the ruins around them. So I figured, I would do something. I wasn't poor, right? I'd give some money to the Red Cross or something. They were doing fundraising in Canada. Like, there's no way I couldn't sleep a wink. And it occurred to me in the middle of the night. I said, okay, I can do one of two things, right?
Yeah.
I can be a schmuck who's not sleeping. I can go and do something. So that next morning, early, I emailed my headmaster at the school, and I said, I've got a gazillion vacation days coming to me, as you know. I just want to let you know what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to go, like in 3 days, to China on my own time, and I'm going to raise money, and that's what I'm going to do. So for me, it was a thing of like, I felt the connection to that region. I felt the connection to the people of Sichuan, to the people of China, and I didn't want to go, like, the first thing I thought is, I'm just going to go right to Sichuan. And then our contacts on the ground there were saying, pointless, you'll never get anywhere near. You won't be able to do anything in Chengdu because Chengdu is sold out of everything. You're just going to be a foreigner in the way. And then I talked to my colleagues in Beijing, my friends in Beijing, who were trying to do something as well. And when I pitched them the idea, hey, how about if I come to Beijing? And they told me about this train, this plane, it was called like the Love Express. that. I was like, and this is like on a Saturday. I'm like, okay, groovy. I'm there on like Wednesday. Let's do it. And we did. And we had such a team of helpers in Beijing. I got to tell you, anytime we ran into a problem, we had somebody who could like pull a string and help out. Anytime we needed like a certain medicine and they were sold out, we had someone who got us into the factory. Because we had something that's very valuable in China. I actually had cash. Like all this was, I got to tell you, Seth, it was crazy. I had like all these different envelopes full of Chinese money, and lots of it. So when the guys would show up with this tenting material, of course we had to pay on delivery. I had to check out to make sure there was enough, quality was good, and then we pay them. So I'm sitting around with like envelopes, and of course in China, the largest currency, this is ridiculous, it's different in Hong Kong, but in China, the largest amount of currency is 100 RMB, which is like $13.
Okay.
In China, you can actually get a 1,000 note and a 500 note. So in China, I'm sitting there with these massive envelopes. I've got like, 18,000 US dollars in like $12 notes. And they always made fun of me because I count like a Westerner. The way I count money in my hand is a very Western way. The people in China do it this really efficient way, really fast, and I can't do it because I lose count. So I sit there and be counting out like, like a 5-year-old, right? Bill, 2 bills. They look at me like I was retarded, seriously. They'd be like, you've got to be kidding me. They count those notes. And I'm like, I can't do it your way. They do it in a way where they fold the bills over their fingers and they use 2 fingers. I can't even describe how they do it. So I'd have these like wads of cash and pay this guy for this guy for this. So having that cash, we were able to get a massive amount of stuff done. We'd even go to sold-out stores, and I'd say to them, look, if I come back tomorrow, I'm coming back with cash. If you can get me like 5,000 more malaria pills, we'll buy them. Their like eyes would light up, and they had.
Wow.
The thing is, when we told people what we were doing, a great example. One of the things they needed in Sichuan was T-shirts. They needed clothing. So I went down with a friend of mine to one of these markets where you buy clothes in Beijing, all over Asia. They have like 1 million little shops in there. And she dealt with a friend of hers who she's bought some stuff from, and we explained that we want T-shirts, clean, fresh cotton T-shirts, and that we want to buy them in bulk. And when we told him what they were for, he got them for us for less than half of the wholesale value.
Oh, wow.
We went from like 14 RMB per shirt, and these are good quality shirts that would last, to 7. And then they worked everything out for us. So basically, I paid this guy, and I trusted him because my friend knew him. And the next day, at a certain time, pallets full of these T-shirts showed up at the train, delivered at the train. So we had nothing to do. They got it right onto the train for us. All we had to do was basically count the pallets, and we were good to go.
Wow.
Because it was all for the relief effort.